The state is saying we have a 3% cut to all state programs? Is that?
Well, we don't know. I mean, that's the budget shortfall would amount to, if we dealt with it only by cutting existing programs, that would amount to 3% of the total state budget. The total state budget is about $5.1 billion. So every percent is $51 million. If we cut the whole state budget, we would save $160 million. That's not enough, but that's enough. Plus, what we could also do would be to use some of the reserves. We have 11% reserve, 12% reserve, so we could use some of that, get it down to 8. I think we could go as low as 4 or 5, but that's a different matter. You know, I get real pushback whenever I bring that up. And the other big thing we can do is shift some capital outlay money that hasn't been spent, that's old, it's on the books, it's been there for a long time, and hasn't been spent yet. If we could find another $100 million of that, let's say. So you do those 3 things: use some reserves, use the capital outlay, then you cut about 150, 160 million across the board of the whole budget. Now the governor this morning said he doesn't want the schools to take a cut.
Right.
All of a sudden now that means schools roughly are 47% of the total budget, K-12. If they don't take a cut, then that's essentially 5+% for everybody else. So that's why I say we don't know yet. I mean, that's his idea. The legislature would have to get involved. He can order a 3% cut. He has executive authority. He can just say to the secretary, stop spending money. We want you to hold your budgets down. No new hires, no new equipment, use last year's paper clips, recycle the pencils, all of it. You cut travel, and then cut the contracts. Now contracts are easy for them to cut. And that's always the when you ask departments, well, prioritize your services and what you would like to see cut. Contracts generally come to the top because they're not the people that are working day to day in the same office as the people ordering the cuts to be made. So there's a little distance between you and them. They can't get quite as angry with you as they would if people were.
And how much is the shortfall?
Well, you hear different estimates. Right now, it looks like it, because all we have is 1 quarter experience. We don't even have the first quarter. The year started July. So all of this is like the distant early warning system. If you're old enough to remember the distant early warning system, as soon as
duck and cover.
Yeah, that's right. As soon as the Russians had a test missile up, we were watching. So this is the test missile, and it's up. And after all we have really is 1 month, July. Now this week we'll have August, or it really won't be this week. It'll be next week. But what we do know is that the revenue came in for July very, very low compared with what it needed to be. Now maybe that was a 1 month aberration, or maybe not. They have all sorts of little things that they detect. The cost of gas, natural gas, for example. If the cost of natural gas stays low, all of us consumers are very excited about it. It means, though, a drastic reduction in state revenue.
We're a gas state, yes.
Oil is not as big a deal, but it still impacts us. And that actually is about where we had projected it. We may not be pumping as much because our production is good. But the big thing is the gross receipts tax. And, July, we're still feeling the effects of this terrible recession, national recession. Retail sales are way down. And that's largely it. The other one might have been income tax, the personal income tax reports, but you don't pay those till later. It's just that with a lot of layoffs, there's not as much coming in out of the payroll tax withholding. So they have 1 month of experience, and based on that, where the line should have been like this, it was angled down a little bit. But then they project that out. And if that holds for 12 months, that same trajectory maintains, then at the end of 12 months, we will have been, what they estimate now is 400 million short. If that line just went up a little tiny bit, then the trajectory would be different. It could be as much as just a $200 million shortfall. I'm one of those that believes we don't need this special session, but nobody asked me. The governor didn't call, or it just seems to me that we may be cutting services just when they're most bad, and that'll have an additional negative impact on the. I mean, this is like a self-fulfilling prophecy. My own solution, and I haven't tried this out on the voters yet. You'll be my focus group here. Is one of our main tax resources is oil and gas revenue. We pump half of that into the permanent fund, and then we use half of it for very specific purposes. The money that goes into the permanent fund is invested. Our investments actually lost money last year, so they didn't do all that great. But we ordinarily, and this year they're coming back up. We use some of the interest money for the budget process. That's one of our revenue sources for the budget process. That's one reason we took a hit last year, because oil and gas money prices didn't go down all that much, but the investments we had invested the profit in bottomed out. I mean, we lost. If you add up all 5 of the permanent funds, the total was something like $12 billion that evaporated while the stock market dropped. The stock market's climbing back. I think we could absolutely, and here's the idea I want to run by you, see if anybody has a heart attack. Terry is a trainee, and is why not take a 2-year moratorium on paying that money into the permanent fund? Let the fund continue to build up slowly with the investments, and just pump that money into the budget. Don't use the interest, keep the interest. Pump the whole amount for 2 years only into the general fund to keep us afloat. That avoids the cuts, which are going to have a spiraling downward negative impact on the budget.
I think it's a fabulous idea.
Are you running for governor now?
Nobody.
I mean, it makes perfect sense.
Isn't that what you do when you're having a rainy day? You don't save as much.
Right, it's a rainy day.
That's what we're all doing as individuals.
Now, immediately the conservatives in the legislature say, "Oh, another raid on the permanent." No, we're not raiding the permanent fund.
Right.
Leave that there. That was what it was for, a rainy day. Leave it alone. Let the interest even accumulate this year, but just pump the money directly for 2 years and see where we are then. And then we revert, or the other thing we need to do, and nobody even talks about, well, a lot of people are starting to talk about it. We've given $1 billion in tax cuts. In other words, the annual impact on the budget is $1 billion of the tax cuts and credits we've given over the life of the Richardson administration. Food tax, income tax cuts, special breaks for different industries, all valuable stuff. I wouldn't argue with solar and movies and all the rest of it. But the net impact of all of that has been $1 billion a year. That is, if we hadn't done that. Now, their argument is, well, we wouldn't have had the regular growth. They've sparked growth, and so maybe there's some truth. But we could revisit some of those tax cuts at least and restore what would amount to a couple $100 million, which is all we're talking about saving with the cuts in the overall budget. So he wants to have a one-day session where we come in and everybody's issued their little rubber stamps upon entrance, and we're poised there, and when the clock starts, we're all supposed to rubber stamp it. Good, we'll go with the governor and leave. I don't think that's going to happen.
Good.
I think there's going to be some real pushback. I know a number of us are prepared to suggest alternative approaches.
Good.
Whether they'll have sufficient momentum to go anywhere, I don't know, but we're going to try to circulate that.
Good.
And in the meantime, we have to look at where.
In the meantime, the state has to move ahead as if the governor were going to succeed in his plan, which is to cut. And so that's where these come.
Now, Jerry, how familiar are you with the DD waiver? Do you understand? I mean, are you familiar with our program?
Well, pretty much. I mean, I've been on the Health and Interim Health and Human Services. It used to be Health, now it's Health and Human Services Committee for the time I've been in the legislature. So I've heard all the presentations and
from the Department of Health.
From the Department of Health and from Medicaid. So you get